Do you guys remember Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota state rep that had her life taken from her by Tim Walz's aide after voting to take away health care from illegal immigrants?
Welcome to the Dollemore Daily. I am Jesse Dollemore. Thank you for joining me. If this is your first time or one of your first times here, let me pose a question to you. If you find yourself to be the president of the United States of America, who's been credibly accused of being a child, what do you do if you want to distract people from those accusations? What do you do when your name has been mentioned thousands of times in documents related to your best friend of nearly 15 years, who is a convicted abuser of children, a pedophile, of children? What do you do? Well, one, I guess you can invade a country when you're president of the United States, after all. You could invade and threaten to invade several other countries. We're going to get to all that. But another thing you can do is take to your personally owned social media platform and spread vile, disgusting conspiracy theories, lies about a political opponent, in this case, Tim Walz. Donald Trump is such a disgraceful, unfit individual to be president of the United States or fucking dog catcher in some local municipality that he did just that in an effort to distract from the credible accusations that he is faced with. Unfit to serve, unfit to be the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of these United States. Donald Trump took to True Social and posted this little video that I'm getting ready to share you. This lie-fueled video accusing Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, of murdering his friend, Melissa Hortman, who died at the hands of a MAGA psychopath, allegedly, Vance Belter. And Donald Trump saw fit to share this. This is the president of the United States of America going full Alex Jones, causing people nuts in his frothing at the mouth band of misfits and deplorables to run away with this conspiracy and also put the lives of Melissa Hortman's surviving relatives in danger and Tim Walz and his family. Watch this and we'll talk about it and break down the nightmare scenario that this is on the other side.
Do you guys remember Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota state rep that had her life taken from her by Tim Walz's aide after voting to take away health care from illegal immigrants?
She was unalived in her home by Vance Belter, who was later caught after a manhunt. He then sent a letter to the FBI and Kash Patel saying that it was Tim Walz who forced him to do it. Both Vance Belter and his wife worked for Tim Walz for years in different states. Was Melissa Hortman unalived because she voted against a multi-billion-dollar money laundering fraud? The fraud that she voted against that heavily implicated illegal aliens, specifically Somalians, who have been racketing this kind of child care, health care rackets and cooperating with our corrupt government. And today it's breaking news that the money laundering scam in Minnesota of billions of dollars for healthcare offices, child daycares, Medicaid, and various forms of care agencies. These money laundering frauds have been exposed, and it all comes back to Tim Walz.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
Very shortly after this, she was unalived in her home by Vance Belter. Vance Belter and his wife worked for Tim Walz for years in different states.
First of all of that is just lies. This is conspiracy, Alex Jones style stuff. And the reason we know that is because if Tim Walz, after all, Donald Trump is the president of the United States of America. He is the leader of the Justice Department. He put in place the Attorney General and the director of the FBI. If there were credible accusations that Tim Walz, if Donald Trump truly believed this to be a possibility, why has there not been an arrest of Tim Walz? If Tim Walz saw to this, he should be investigated and indicted and arrested and prosecuted and sentenced to prison for the rest of his natural days. And the fact that that is not taking place should lead you to know everything you need to know about what this was. A distraction. This is rhetorical bomb throwing on the part of Donald Trump. And it endangers lives. This is the harassment of survivors of an assassination of a Democrat. That's what this is. It is the exact, there is nothing different between what this is and what Alex Jones did to the families of Sandy Hook. And it's coming from the President of the United States. Look, even if somebody was to say, well, this is just to own the libs. This is just a little tee-hee making fun of things. Not his job. We deserve better as a country. I challenge any MAGA puke in my audience who hate watches my videos and sends me dozens of voicemails per day, psychos, losers, obsessed weirdos. Challenge, justify this. Put your spin on it. If you're loyal to the president, this must mean Tim Walz is guilty of this thing. Should you not be calling for the prosecution, for the investigation, for a raid of Tim Walz's residence to get to the bottom of this heinous crime? This plotting, this conspiracy to assassinate his good friend, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, and their dog. This is where we are in America. Our president has allegedly committed such heinous crimes that he needs to resort to this type of behavior that is not only unbefitting, it doesn't live up to the expectations of a seated United States president. This doesn't live up to the expectations that you would have for anyone other than a cognitively declined, demented lunatic, someone who sits on an apple box on a street corner yelling about Jesus and the end of the world. And we have seen fit to bestow, to imbue immense power on this particular individual, Donald Trump. He can deploy troops to kidnap leaders of foreign countries, to threaten other countries, allies that he wants to take them over. All because we are a failing state. We are not a nation in decline. We are in the last days. And unless we have Democrats in office who are willing to stand up, to step up and do something to stop him, we will be a failed nation. I'm sure I missed a whole bunch, and you can fill in the blanks for me. We can do it in the comments. We can talk about it there.
Who is in charge? Are you running Venezuela right now?
Yeah, I mean, I keep people, fixating on that. Here's the bottom line on it is we expect to see changes in Venezuela.
What a wild, wild weekend it has been. Look, I talk a lot about many things can be true at the same time, and we need to deal with complex issues and headlines with a complex set of criteria for understanding them. And this one in particular definitely needs that, because Nicolas Maduro, the deposed, the kidnapped president, he was an illegitimate leader of Venezuela. He is a terrible guy. A bad person, a despot, a dictator, a cruel maniac, removing the option of freedom or even living healthy in his country as he lives a lavish lifestyle and his people starve. None of that is in question. You're not going to hear me singing the praises of this dipshit, Nicolas Maduro, or the power structure around him that has allowed him to follow Hugo Chavez and ruin this country and oppress the people who live there. You're not going to hear me saying that. But, not really but, and We are a constitutional republic with rules. We live in a political order that sets aside political power to three separate, co-equal branches of government. Donald Trump knows, the people surrounding him know that the Constitution sets aside the power to declare war to the Congress. He does not possess it. But because he believes himself to be a king, he believes all of us to be his subjects, he does what he wants. He attacked a foreign country, sent in our military, endangered our military to kidnap Nicolas Maduro and his wife and bring them back to the United States. And there's all kinds of excuses being made. We'll be following this for the next several weeks or months, maybe years, after they've promised us no more forever wars, no more regime change. And here we are. Luckily for us, Donald Trump has surrounded himself with morons, people who don't do crime good. They're good at doing crimes, they're just not good at doing them good. And Marco Rubio was on the Meet the Press and a couple other shows yesterday, but Meet the Press was really it was the chef's kiss of just idiocy, of him just telling on the dear leader. He's blowing Trump's cover, as it were. Because all kinds of questions are being asked about the motivations and what the predicates were for this attack, what the justifications were legally, ethically, morally, constitutionally. And Marco Rubio is just shitting the bed, one question after the next, not backing the play and the narrative that the administration wants to hear, trying to make it up on his own on the fly, because he knows, of all people, Marco Rubio knows just how bereft of justification or legality this was. We know he knows because in past years when he was a Trump critic, he said so. He dedicated his life as a public servant, some of this is tongue-in-cheek, to the prospect of soft diplomacy, soft power for our nation. And here he is now, the simp that he is, the ass lick for Donald Trump that he is, the bootlicking sycophant that he is, on Meet the Press to make excuses. Let's start with this, because after all, what Donald Trump said, he is the tip of the spear, he is the policymaker, he is the dear leader. Donald Trump said, we are now running Venezuela. These people behind me, right here, Marco Rubio being one of them, Pete Hegseth being one, Raisin Cain, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, being another, they're running Venezuela now. And so, Kristen Welker here asking the question, so are you running Venezuela? That's the question. I want you to attune your ear to hear him not answer.
Mr. Secretary, who is in charge? Are you running Venezuela right now?
Yeah, I mean, I keep people, fixating on that. Here's the bottom line on it is we expect to see changes in Venezuela. Changes of all kinds, long-term, short-term. We'd love to see all kinds of changes. But the most immediate changes are the ones that are in the national interest of the United States. That's why we're involved here, because of how it applies and has a direct impact on the United States. Okay, we are not going to be able to allow in our hemisphere a country that becomes a crossroads for the activities of all of our adversaries around the world. We just can't allow it. We can't have a country where the people in charge of its military and in charge of its police department are openly cooperating with drug trafficking organizations. We're not going to allow that. These things are direct threats to the United States. And we intend to use every element of leverage that we have to ensure that that changes.
The reason people are fixating on the issue, Marco Rubio, as you well know, is because it's an important one. Under what authority do you have to run a supposedly democratic nation? Now, Nicolas Maduro acted like a Donald Trump, but he was successful in taking power after having lost an election. You would think Donald Trump would admire the effort of Nicolas Maduro, because he succeeded where Donald Trump failed in overturning a free and fair election, in maintaining power even though he lost. Not a good look, Marco. Not a good look. And we know that this is all a sham because when she asked this very next setup here, she asked him about elections. So when are we going to see elections to have a democratically elected leader of this country? After all, that's one of the reasons, that's one of the justifications that you invaded, is that he's not supposed to be there. He's not democratically elected. You won't believe, you will, maybe you will if you've seen it, but you will not believe the answer from this person who represents democracy and the goal of democratic rule in Venezuela.
You talk about a holistic transition. I think there's a lot of focus on potential elections. How soon will elections be held? Within 30 days, Mr. Secretary?
Elections? Well, look, this is a country that's been governed by this regime now for 14 or 15 years. The elections should have happened a long time ago. The elections did happen. They lost them, and they didn't count the votes, or they refused to count the votes, and everyone knows it. So all of that, I think, is premature at this point. There's a lot of work to be done here. Right now, what we are focused in, let's be realistic here, what we are focused on right now is all of the problems we had with when Maduro was there. We still have those problems in terms of them needing to be addressed. We are going to give people an opportunity to address those challenges and those problems. Until they address it, they will continue to face this oil quarantine. They will continue to face pressure from the United States. We will continue to target drug boats if they try to run towards the United States. We will continue to seize the boats that are sanctioned with court orders. We will continue to do that and potentially other things until the things we need to see addressed are addressed. Because ultimately, above everything else, we care about elections, we care about democracy, we care about all of that. But the number one thing we care about is the safety, security, well-being, and prosperity of the United States. And that's what we're going to focus on first and foremost here. And that's what these policies, these changes we need to see made are about.
Okay, significant there. You say you will continue to seize boats when necessary. I want to ask you about boots on the ground.
How soon will elections be held in Venezuela? 30 days, she says. His response, elections? What? What do you mean elections? He's given up the game. Failing. Maybe he's trying to sabotage the agenda of Donald Trump from within. I mean, that's the only other explanation here, other than the fact that he's just a dipshit who can't think on his feet. That's likely the answer, but it sure is a problematic one. The other question that many people are asking, many MAGA are trying to formulate this lie, formulate this distraction, is that all this is not about oil. This is about drugs. Even though during Donald Trump's hour-long, meandering, sleepy time press conference announcing this entire illegal invasion of a country, he said many times, more than any other reason that he gave, he said it was about the oil. Not about the drugs. And Marco Rubio can't even get that right.
Let me ask you about oil. The president says the U.S. is taking over the oil. The question is, I guess, if the purpose of the operation was to capture Maduro and bring him to justice, why does the United States need to take over the Venezuelan oil industry?
Well, we don't need to. First of all, let me go back up. We don't need Venezuela's oil. We have plenty of oil in the United States. What we're not going to allow is for the oil industry in Venezuela to be controlled by adversaries of the United States. You have to understand, why does China need their oil? Why does Russia need their oil? Why does Iran need their oil? They're not even in this continent. This is the Western Hemisphere. This is where we live. And we're not going to allow the Western Hemisphere to be a base of operation for adversaries, competitors, and rivals of the United States.
Have specific oil companies?
We also want to see that oil and the proceeds from it. Hold on. We want to see the oil proceeds of that country benefit the people of Venezuela. Why have 8 million people left Venezuela? 8 million, the single largest mass migration probably in modern history, left Venezuela since 2014 because all the wealth of that country was stolen to the benefit of Maduro and his cronies in the regime, but not to the benefit of people of Venezuela. You know how destabilizing 8 million migrants is? The number one fear that Brazil has, that Colombia has, that all these countries in the region have about what's happening in Venezuela and our involvement is they're afraid of another mass migration event. That's what they fear. This is deeply destabilizing stuff. It's not going to continue to happen. They are not going to come from outside of our hemisphere, destabilize our region in our own backyard, and us have to pay the price for it. Not under President Trump.
Well, we don't need to take over the oil. Well, why are you taking over the oil if it's about the drugs? Well, we don't need to do that, but we're going to do it. And we'll see that the proceeds go to the people of Venezuela. Even though Donald Trump has said that the oil companies are going to stand up the infrastructure and the refining processes there, and then they will be paid back for their effort. So at what point, Marco Rubio, are the people of Venezuela going to, after you've extricated them from the rule of their dictator, are they going to see the profits? When are they going to luxuriate in what is their birthright, the oil under their feet that Donald Trump claims is our oil? The oil under the ground of Venezuela apparently is our oil. You're not giving the same answers or justifications or reasons that the dear leader is. You're not being a good representative of your president, Marco Rubio. And then let's end with this. I know I don't want to go too long here. Marco Rubio was asked specifically about congressional authorization and at what point going forward, if there has to be other strikes or military deployments or other actions taken by the United States government, especially where it relates to the military, especially. When will you be giving congressional notification or getting approval from them? After all, that's the system we live under. You, after all, took an oath to defend and support the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I guess it doesn't matter that you happen to work for a domestic threat to the Constitution, right, Marco? And that's what gets asked here about congressional authorization, which is really the crux of this entire matter. And spoiler alert, if you're not paying attention, he fucks this one up too.
White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles told Vanity Fair that an attack on Venezuela's mainland would require approval from Congress. Why didn't that happen, and will it happen with any future action the administration plans to take in Venezuela or elsewhere?
This was not an action that required congressional approval. In fact, it couldn't require congressional approval because this was not an invasion. This is not an extended military operation. This is a very precise operation that involved a couple of hours of action. It was a very delicate operation, too. It was one that required all these conditions to be in place at the right time in the right place. You couldn't afford leaks. We couldn't afford anything out there that would have endangered the mission and gotten people killed or killed off the mission and the optionality. We didn't even know if the mission was going to happen. How can you notify something you're not even sure if it can happen? Because in order for it to happen, you needed to have weather conditions in place. He needed to be at the right place at the right time. We needed to have forces prepared to go. There were a lot of factors in place. It was a trigger-based operation. But you can't notify that, number one, because you don't even know if it's going to happen, if those conditions will ever align. And number two, you can't risk it being disclosed. But this was not an attack on Venezuela. This was a law enforcement function to capture an indicted drug trafficker. And of course, we needed the Department of War to support it because they do have anti-aircraft missiles that could shoot down those helicopters.
But we
had to take down radars. We had to take down those anti-air elements on the way in and on the way out. And that's what this was limited to.
But will you seek congressional approval for any further action in Venezuela or the region?
Well, we will seek congressional approval for actions that require congressional approval. But otherwise, they will get congressional notification. And this is not an operation that required congressional approval. In fact, this is an operation akin to what virtually every single president for the last 40 years has conducted. The difference is that when it's Donald Trump, all these Democrats go bonkers.
Oh, we'll ask for approval when it's necessary, but after that, we're just going to give congressional notification. Says the guy who was a senator for many, many years, a member of the body that he now believes isn't important. Doesn't rate approval from the one branch of government that is specifically outlined as the branch of government to declare war. And after all, that is what this is. As much as they want to paint this as some kind of a backup of law enforcement, this was just the military helping out the DOJ. Is that right? Everything else you say flies in the face of that, Marco Rubio, as you defend fascism, as you defend the king-like powers that Donald Trump craves, and you legitimize it. Anyway, what do you think? I know you've been following this story this weekend. I'd love your opinions. You can share them in the comments below the video. If it's on Facebook, please make sure you're liking and following the Facebook page, Dollemore Daily. If it's on YouTube, well, make sure you're doing both. Subscribe on YouTube, like and follow the Facebook page. I would appreciate it very much. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com.
I will also restore peace through strength, and I will prevent World War III from happening. We will stop it.
If there's any silver lining, and there are very, very few, if any, but if there is one regarding this entire Venezuela invasion and the kidnapping of a leader of a country, it is the fact that MAGA might just be waking up. They might be just understanding the lay of the land where it relates to Donald Trump's absolute lies, the breaking of his promises, all of the fake trumped up rhetoric that he provided for years and years and years, up to and including in this campaign running for president in this election that he won. They ran on peace. They promised no more wars, no more regime change. And MAGA cannot help but notice the same thing that's happened with the Jeffrey Epstein files that has weakened Donald Trump so much is now happening with this. Because of all the things that Donald Trump promised, there were three that were very important to MAGA. That was prices, inflation. That was the Epstein files being released. We know how that's gone with both of those. I think I'm starting to lose my voice. I'm just now realizing it. And the other is no more war, no more regime change, that Donald Trump is the president of peace. While we find ourselves in a full-scale regime change plot, and Donald Trump is sharing images of him giving thumbs up in the Oval Office under a video titled "President Trump is the President of Peace." While we are doing nation building in Gaza, as Donald Trump justifies and makes excuses for the genocide that has taken place there, that is taking place there, the systematic decision by Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government to starve the people of Gaza to death, to erase their people and their culture from the face of the earth. But Donald Trump's the president of peace. In fact, just on New Year's Eve, he was asked a question by a journalist as he exited the portico or entered the portico at Mar-a-Lago. What's your hope for the new year? You'll never guess what his answer was.
Nicely dressed. Right, Mr. President. Right. Mr. President, do you have a New Year's resolution?
I have.
Let's hear it.
Peace on earth. Peace on earth.
It's a hell of a New Year's resolution, right? For the guy who invades, kidnaps foreign leaders and threatens others, who gets his soccer peace prize because everybody with any eyes or clear understanding of who he is and what his motivations are knows he doesn't deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. So he gets the soccer. He gets the consolation prize. He gets the participation trophy. Here is Donald Trump on the campaign trail, August of 2024, saying that he will restore peace and prevent World War III. And he goes into this whole nonsense about how Hillary said my tone was going to start wars, but I defeated ISIS, even though ISIS is now being used as a reason for bombing Nigeria. I thought you got rid of them 100%, he actually, I think, says in this clip. Watch this.
I will also restore peace through strength, and I will prevent World War III from happening. We will stop it. You know, when crooked Hillary Clinton was running against me, she said, look at him, listen to him. He will start a war, a world war. We had no wars other than I defeated ISIS in its entirety, 100% of the ISIS caliber. Listen to his rhetoric. Listen to his horrible tone. I said that horrible tone is going to keep people from fighting us, and that's what happened. We had no wars. It's been 81 years since that happened for a president. No wars, other than ending some wars that we're in and defeating ISIS.
And look, It wasn't just Donald Trump. It was a team effort. J.D. Vance out there on the campaign trail. This clip is from also during the campaign in 2024, talking about how who's going to go fight in those wars that Kamala Harris is going to start. It's going to be our young men and women, and we want to protect them. We don't want to send them into foreign countries to die.
And we had a world that was at relative peace and calm. And now we've got a world at war in seemingly every continent. Who's going to fight those wars? I guarantee you, it's not going to be Kamala Harris's family. It's going to be the people right here from Erie, Pennsylvania. So we want peace, right? Peace and stability.
So we want peace, right? Yeah. Yeah, we do, J.D. Vance. And you promised that. And Donald Trump promised that. And where are we now? Where are we now as you extrajudiciously, illegally, against both international law and U.S. law, just murder people on the high seas that you claim with no proof, with no due process, are drug smugglers, which isn't a capital crime? Well, what about that? How about that, J.D. Vance? Here's another one. This is from this year, just a couple of months ago, during the Marine Corps ball, or he was there to celebrate. It was 2 days before the Marine Corps birthday. Talking to Marines and expressing to them that we're doing things differently now. That when we send you somewhere, there will be a clear mission. There will be a clear exit strategy. You will know what's going on. There will be a clear end in sight. And yet here we are. The mission is unclear. How long people are going to be there. And mark my words, make no mistake, there are Americans on the ground right now. There is military on the ground right now in Venezuela with no end in sight, no clear, no understanding of what the rules of engagement are, no understanding of what the end state will be. J.D. Vance, just a couple of months ago.
One of the mistakes that I think we made over the past 40 years, over my entire life, and let's be honest, it was Democrats and Republicans, this is not even a partisan point, is that we were too willing to send our Marines and our soldiers and everybody else off to war without giving you clear guidance about what you needed to do and clear guidelines for when you would come home. And that is one thing the President of the United States and everybody in the White House, we promise we will never do. When we send you off to fight our nation's battles, we will do it with full confidence. We will give you the knowledge and the tools you need to win, and we will make it clear that your job is to kick the enemy's ass and come back home safely. That is our sacred promise from the President of the United States on down. That's what we owe every single one of you, is a clear mission and a clear promise that when you do that mission, you're going to come home safely. That's the first point that I want to make.
And look, it wouldn't be... I wouldn't be doing my job well if I didn't also include Tulsi Gabbard, the Democrat turned Republican bootlicker, the progressive Democrat turned Trump sycophant, who on Halloween of this past year, October 31st of this past year, gave a speech talking about how Donald Trump was ushering in a new age. And he was going to put an end to the endless cycle of regime change and nation building and forever wars. Those times are over under Donald Trump, says Tulsi Gabbard.
The old Washington way of thinking is something we hope is in the rearview mirror and something that has held us back for too long. For decades, our foreign policy has been trapped in a counterproductive and endless cycle of regime change or nation building. It was a one-size-fits-all approach of toppling regimes, trying to impose our system of governance on others, intervene in conflicts that were barely understood, and walk away with more enemies than allies. The results? Trillions spent, countless lives lost, and in many cases, a creation of greater security threats, the rise of Islamist terrorist groups like ISIS. President Trump was elected by the American people to put an end to this. And from day one, he has showed a very different way to conduct foreign policy.
These people have no dignity, no self-respect, no shame in the things that they say but don't believe, in the things that they say but don't even follow up on. They're just liars. To call them hypocrites, it just doesn't get it done. There's somebody on Twitter, Caroline Bueno, who put this little ditty together. I'll put this up on screen and you can pause. We'll leave it up on screen for 5 or 10 seconds as I'm talking here. But you can pause the screen and look at all of these times that Tulsi Gabbard has let her true convictions be known on how she feels about regime change, how she feels about Venezuela, specifically Venezuela. And she's been yammering about this, lying about this deeply held political conviction relative to policy since 2019 when she was trying to run for president as a Democrat. Remember this.
The United States needs to keep our hands off Venezuela and let the Venezuelan people determine their own future. And as president, I would continue that policy, both in countries like Venezuela and others, and end these destructive and wasteful regime change wars that have proven so costly on us, the American people, on our troops and service members and their families, and have proven to cause more problems, increase suffering, increase instability for the people in the countries where we wage these wars. In Latin America especially, we only have to look to history to see what happens when the United States comes in and tries to act as the world's police, toppling governments and leaders and dictators that they don't like. It is the people who always end up suffering the most, both in the short term as well as the long term.
Yeah. I mean, it's to say it's a bit much would be a bit much. This is just gross. These people are beholden to nothing but profiting Donald Trump and his pals, because there will be billions upon billions upon billions of dollars made in profit for Donald Trump and his cohort of billionaire ghouls off of this. These are war profiteers, including Tulsi Gabbard, the peacenik, including J.D. Vance, the man who says, we're not going to send you anywhere that we don't tell you what's going on. And including Donald Trump, who puts up images again that he is the president of peace. Right. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below. Let this serve as a reference for you as Donald Trump provides conquest for MAGA. The thing they didn't want or claimed they didn't want, but we'll see. So if you're one of those people out there who's like, well, at least it's just Venezuela. At least we're just liberating the people of Venezuela. At least Donald Trump's going to hold up to his promise about no new wars, about no regime change, about no entanglement with U.S. policy. At least we have that to look forward to, right? Don't be one of those naive people. Don't give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt that he does not earn. He has not earned and he does not deserve. Because there's a slew of countries that are on deck for invasion, that are primed for Donald Trump to distract even more from the headlines about his involvement in the Epstein files. We already know what took place in Venezuela, right? We got Canada, Mexico. By the way, there's going to be receipts here. So let this video serve as a repository. It'll exist forever on the internet, where you can point people to that invariably when we do end up invading Canada or Mexico or Cuba or Greenland or some of these others, Nigeria, Iran, Colombia. When it happens, you will have the justification here. You will have the understanding of that someone out there called it like it was going to happen. But let's start with this. This is Donald Trump just this weekend talking to Fox and Friends, saying that, hey, no one can stop us. If we want to do it, we're going to do it. If we have to do it again, we can do it again too. No one can stop us.
After having done this incredible thing last night of letting somebody else take over, where we have to do it again, we can do it again too. Nobody can stop us. There's nobody that has the capability that we have. You know, when I watched that war in Russia going on and on and on, and everybody dying, and It's like it's primitive. It's primitive. It's horrible.
Nice little chuckle at the end there from the Fox News host, while giving a little tee-hee about the carnage and the loss of life in Ukraine at the hands of Russians. Fantastic. This is an administration that is not only not taking this seriously, they are making jokes about what they're doing. This is from the White House, the official Twitter account of the White House. No games. Fuck around and find out, they post. With this goofy black and white ominous picture of Donald Trump like he's some kind of a strong man or a badass when he is nothing but a draft dodger, a physical coward and weakling who turned down the opportunity to serve when his nation called. Yet he's our commander-in-chief. He's a brave man who makes brave, bold calls, they'd have you believe. We know what he did in Venezuela. He signaled as much for Canada, our ally, our peaceful, developed nation ally to the north. This, well, I was just going to cut to the clip, but actually, this was in an address in a speech given to the highest ranked individuals in our military. Remember this from a few months ago in September.
And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free. So I don't know if that made a big impact, but it does make a lot of sense. It actually makes, because they're having a hard time up there in Canada now, because as you know, with tariffs, everyone's coming into our country.
These are by design. I'm doing them in the right order here, by the way, because I'm covering North America. I'm covering our hemisphere, and then we'll move on because he has floated this idea that it's a new doctrine. It's not the Monroe Doctrine. It's the Donroe Doctrine. We'll get to that. But it's not just Venezuela. It's not just Canada. He said as much this weekend about Mexico.
I wonder, Mr. President, though, I want to ask you because from your vice president, J.D. Vance, said that the message is pretty clear. The drug trafficking must stop. So was this operation a message that you're sending to Mexico, to Claudia Sheinbaum, the president there?
Well, it wasn't meant to be, and we're very friendly with her. She's a good woman, but the cartels are running Mexico. She's not running Mexico. The cartels are running Mexico. And we could be politically correct and be nice and say, oh, yes, she is. No, she's very, she's very frightened of the cartels. They're running Mexico. And I've asked her numerous times, would you like us to take out the cartels? No, Mr. President. No, please. So we have to do something because we lost. The real number is 300,000 people, in my opinion. They like to say 100,000. 100,000 is a lot of people, but the real number is 300,000 people. And we lost it to drugs, and they come in through the southern border, mostly the southern border. Plenty come in through Canada, too, by the way, in case you don't know. Yeah. But they come in through the southern border, and something's going to have to be done with Mexico.
Something is going to have to be done with Mexico, says Donald Trump, who just illegally invaded and kidnapped the leader of a foreign country. They're doing the same shit about Greenland. Stephen Miller's wife tweeted this horrific tweet about Greenland. Soon, she says, with Greenland that's covered in a United States flag. Donald Trump also has been talking quite a bit about Greenland, stressing and insisting that we need Greenland, is how he phrases it. We need Greenland for national security's sake.
Thank you, sir. You've named Governor Landry to be new special envoy to Greenland.
Yeah.
What do you see that role entailing, and is it still your intention that Greenland become part of the U.S.?
He viewed Louisiana, the Louisiana Purchase. He said, I'm governor of Louisiana. And he said, I didn't call him, he called me. He's very proactive. He's a great guy. He's a deal guy. He's a deal maker type guy. And we need it for national protection. We need Greenland for national protection. They have a very small population. And I don't know, they say Denmark, but Denmark has spent no money. They have no military protection. If they say that Denmark was there 300 years ago or something with a boat, well, we were there with boats too, I'm sure. So we'll have to work it all out. But he felt very strongly we need Greenland for national security, not for minerals. We have so many sites for minerals and oil and everything. We have more oil than any other country in the world. We need Greenland for national security. And if you take a look at Greenland, you look up and down the coast, you have Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need it for national security. We have to have it. And he wanted to lead the charge. So we're making him, Marco, today, a special envoy to Greenland. Greenland's a big deal. Yeah.
So are we keeping track here? We got Venezuela, we got Canada, we got Mexico, we got Greenland. Let's stay within our hemisphere. Here's Colombia. He's been telling the president of Colombia, the democratically elected president of Colombia, that he better watch his ass. And he was asked about this while talking about the invasion, the illegal kidnapping of a foreign leader in Venezuela. And he doubled down and said, yeah, I'm going to go with what my earlier thing was. He does need to watch his ass.
Mr. President, Colombian President Gustavo Petro, a couple weeks ago, he said he's got to watch his ass. And today he said he's not concerned about anything happening to him in the aftermath of this operation. So just what your message is about that.
Well, he has cocaine mills. He has factories where he makes cocaine. And yeah, I think I stick by my first statement. He's making cocaine. They're sending it into the United States. So he does have to watch his ass.
Are you keeping track? Do we have an idea of what Donald Trump has in mind? He wants to treat this hemisphere like Hitler treated the European theater during World War II. Donald Trump was compared to Hitler by his own vice president. He might be America's Hitler. And here we are as he threatens Canada and Mexico, invades Venezuela. Venezuela never fired a shot. Venezuela didn't drop any bombs. Venezuela was no threat to the United States whatsoever. But the leader, the shitty dictator of Venezuela is now in U.S. custody, which is fine. That's fine. But it's how we do it. Didn't follow the law. Didn't go to Congress for authorization to use military force against another nation. And now there's a pattern emerging. President of Colombia better watch his ass. Cuba also, just from this weekend, they're also at risk.
Go ahead.
Yeah, is there a message here for Cuba and Diaz-Canel?
Well, Cuba's an interesting case. Cuba is, not doing very well right now. That system has not been a very good one for Cuba. The people there have suffered for many, many years. And I think Cuba is going to be something we'll end up talking about because Cuba is a failing nation right now, very badly failing nation. And we want to help the people of it's very similar in the sense that we want to help the people in Cuba, but we want to also help the people that were forced out of Cuba and living in this country. Do you want to say something about that, Marco, please?
I think Cuba will be something we'll have to talk about too. Very similar situation, he says. And his Secretary of State, who is just the token Cuban in the administration, who will be there as the poster boy for, this is a guy whose parents are Cuban immigrants. This needs to happen because Marco Rubio says so. He was asked about this yesterday on the Sunday shows, and this is what he had to say.
Is the Cuban government the Trump administration's next target, Mr. Secretary? Very quickly.
Well, the Cuban government is a huge problem. Yeah, the Cuban government is a huge problem. First of all,
is that a yes?
Cuba, but I don't think people fully appreciate. I think they're in a lot of trouble. Yes, I'm not going to talk to you about what our future steps are going to be and our policies are going to be right now in this regard, but I don't think it's any mystery that we are not big fans of the Cuban regime, who, by the way, are the ones that were propping up Maduro. His entire internal security force, his internal security apparatus is entirely controlled by Cubans. One of the untold stories here is how, in essence, you talk about colonization, because I think you said Delcy Rodriguez mentioned that. The ones who have sort of colonized, at least inside the regime, are Cubans. It was Cubans that guarded Maduro. He was not guarded by Venezuelan bodyguards. Right. He had Cuban bodyguards. In terms of their internal intelligence, who spies on who inside to make sure there are no traitors, those are all Cubans.
All right.
And Marco Rubio backs the play. Yep, they're in a lot of trouble too, he says. Are we keeping count? Venezuela, Canada, Mexico, Greenland, Colombia, Cuba. And if you're thinking, yeah, well, this is the new Monroe Doctrine, that it's just the Western Hemisphere. This, by the way, I'll skip ahead here. This is what he shared. We'll get to what the Monroe Doctrine is. But it's him with a bat protecting the Western Hemisphere, protecting North America and South America. Except for he's also making threats after having bombed Nigeria for their attack on Christians, because it's, only Christian lives matter, unless it's those Christians that he's violently deporting from the United States and vilifying. Yeah, they're eating the cats, they're eating the pets, they're eating the cats and dogs. Christians from Venezuela that he acts like are all gang members. The rapists from Mexico that he assumes some are good people. All of these are Christian people. Here he is, put this on True Social as a reminder that you're not safe either, Nigeria.
If the Nigerian government continues to allow the killing of Christians, the USA will immediately stop all aid and assistance to Nigeria. We're going to do things to Nigeria that Nigeria is not going to be happy about, and may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing, to completely wipe out the Islamic terrorists who are committing these horrible, horrible atrocities. I'm hereby instructing our Department of War to prepare for possible action. If we attack, it will be fast, vicious, and sweet, just like the terrorist thugs attack our cherished Christians. These are cherished people. These are great people. Leave them alone. Warning, the Nigerian government better move fast before it's too late. If they don't, there's going to be hell to pay.
And then, of course, we would not have a complete list, and this might not even be a complete list, but we would not have as complete a list as this is if not talking about Iran. Donald Trump dispatched Mike Huckabee over the weekend, and he's now making threats against Iran, I guess, as a proxy spokesperson for Israel, a country he doesn't represent, because after all, he's the American ambassador to Israel. Watch him threaten Iran.
Trying to build weapons to kill people in other parts of the world rather than build a better life for the Iranian people. So let's hope that nobody has to go in militarily and take down Iran. Maybe the people will do it from within. That'd be the best solution of all. And bring them into a sense of civilization. They once were really the most progressive and extraordinarily culturally advanced part of this part of the whole world. And then after the Ayatollahs came in 1979, they screwed the whole place up.
And then again, we'll end with this. Look, I'm going to put these screenshots up. I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but this is some kind of a janky, sideways, idiot notion of creating Donald Trump's own Monroe Doctrine style foreign policy blanket. And it is completely bananas to compare yourself to the Monroe Doctrine, which was from the early part of the 1800s, like 1823. John Quincy Adams was James Monroe's vice president. That tells you how far the son of the second president of the United States was the vice president for James Monroe. When the globe was not we didn't have the internet. Obviously we didn't have the internet. We didn't have the global trade infrastructure and the global economy that we have now. And we were protecting ourselves from the influence and the interference of European nations here in the Western Hemisphere, because we wanted the spoils of colonialism and imperialism for ourselves. That's what it was. But Donald Trump wants you to believe that it's the Monroe Doctrine as he elevates and legitimizes himself while threatening all of the countries that we've listed, not just in the Western Hemisphere, but also in the Middle East, in Africa. And look, this might not even be a complete list, but let this serve as a reference for you. We can tick down the list as Donald Trump provides conquest for MAGA, the thing they didn't want or claimed they didn't want. But we'll see. Anyway, what do you think? What did I miss? What did I miss? What we need in this moment are Democratic leaders who are willing to do the work, who are willing to stop voting for Donald Trump's nominees, stop voting for Donald Trump's legislation, stop advancing the agenda of this illegal usurper of our Constitution. With any illegal act that Donald Trump does, there are myriad justifications for it. They all contradict with one another and they come at different times. It depends on who the interviewer is talking to or what happens to be in the headlines that day. It's always just this ever-evolving, changing, fluid thing relative to what should be concrete answers about why we did what we did. The legal justification, the constitutional justification, the foreign policy justification. None of that we get with Donald Trump because it's all ad hoc, slapdick nonsense from a group of just idiots who have no respect for the Constitution, for the rule of law, for the American people, for tradition. So they're claiming this is all about the drugs. They're claiming this is about fentanyl, you're hearing, even though fentanyl's not mentioned in the indictment of Nicolas Maduro at all. It's about the drugs. It's about the drugs. It's about the drugs. We can't have drug traffickers in our hemisphere. We can't have them killing Americans. That's not what it's about, though. We know that's not what it's about because Donald Trump pardoned a legendary drug trafficker, the former president of Honduras, who was trafficking hundreds of thousands of tons of cocaine. Hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cocaine, killing, ostensibly, innumerable Americans. And Donald Trump, when asked about this, gave a nonsense answer the other day while he was talking about invading Venezuela. And it's batshit. And then we're going to get to Dan Goldman, Democratic congressman, really putting the nail in the coffin here and explaining exactly what we're doing. But first, here's Donald Trump just tripping over his own tiny dick, trying to make explanations.
You said that Maduro is responsible for drug trafficking. You recently pardoned the former president of Honduras who was convicted on many drug trafficking. Can you explain how these two situations are different? And would you ever pardon Maduro?
I endorsed, as you know, the winning president, the man who won in Honduras. I endorsed the man who won in Chile. I endorsed the man who won in Argentina. And we are doing very well with that whole group. What the man that I pardoned was, if you could equate it to us, he was treated like the Biden administration treated a man named Trump. That didn't work out too well for them. This was a man who was persecuted very unfairly. He was the head of the country. He was persecuted very unfairly. And there are a number of them. And we felt that it was a very unfair situation that happened to him. He's also a party member of the man who won. So obviously the people liked what I did. And one of the reasons that was done is because of the fact that the party in power felt very strongly that that man was treated very badly. I studied it very quickly, and then I studied it in great detail. I went to a lot of the people standing behind me, and they felt that that man was persecuted and treated very badly. That's why I gave him a pardon.
You know what he didn't say there? You know, in all of the talk and all of the meandering nonsense and the trying to find a point and just trying to keep himself from falling asleep mid-sentence, what he didn't say is that he was innocent. He was treated very unfairly. Oh, so unfairly. He didn't say he didn't do it. Most certainly did not say that. That's because he was dead to rights. The evidence is out there. You could read through the transcripts of the trial. The guy was guilty. Donald Trump doesn't care about drug trafficking. He doesn't care about saving the lives of people who are addicted to drugs. He doesn't care about any of that. He cares about how he can be paid for pardoning people. And that is what happened. Now, Dan Goldman does a far better job than I could ever dream of doing. He was on MS Now, was the new name of MSNBC, and talking about this very thing. I have two clips of Dan Goldman. One is that this is not about the drugs, and the second one, he explains exactly what it is about.
Because what it reveals is that this pretext about trying to bring Nicolas Maduro to justice for his drug trafficking is total bogus. because the Honduran president was just pardoned, notwithstanding an actual conviction in U.S. court for the same thing. And not to mention that an MS-13 leader who was extradited to the Eastern District of New York, his case was actually just dismissed about 9 months ago so that he could be deported back to El Salvador, and where Donald Trump has a budding bromance with President Bukele. So it can't be that only narco-terrorism in Venezuela is worth battling, but narco-terrorism in Honduras and El Salvador is perfectly fine. And that's why it gives the lie to this explanation.
So if it's not about the drugs, which it clearly is not about the drugs, what is it about? Spoiler alert, it's the oil.
But Donald Trump in his address today revealed what I think is the reason, and it is oil. And it is that Donald Trump promised oil executives that if they gave him $1 billion for his campaign, that he would do right by them. And they gave about $500 million. And this is a massive gift that is in violation of international law and is essentially just co-opting an entire country's natural resources for the benefit of U.S. companies. When we have so many things that we need to deal with here at home, none of this affects grocery prices or health care or wages or prices of rent. None of this has anything to do with helping those issues which are central to the American people. We are now venturing. Donald Trump is taking us into another amorphous, shapeless and unknown, uncharted territory now with taking over another country.
You see, Donald Trump does crime so poorly that he just explains what he's going to do before he does it, and then he does it. And then when all of the court cases invariably going to come around, when all of the cease and desist orders and all of the trying to get to the bottom of this, all we have to do is go back to his previous statements where he, just like Dan Goldman just said, he promised the oil companies, if you help me get elected, you'll be rewarded with untold riches. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said. And here we are. Here we are. He's following through for his billionaire buddies on the campaign promises. He doesn't follow through on his campaign promises to MAGA, to people who can't benefit him. Oh, you voted for me? Pfft, who cares? You don't matter to me. Billionaires who own oil companies matter to me. That's why I'm against solar. That's why I'm against windmills. We need oil. We need coal. Because those people are paying him. Those people are donating money to his ballroom. Gross. What we need in this moment are Democratic leaders who are willing to do the work, who are willing to stop voting for Donald Trump's nominees, stop voting for Donald Trump's legislation, stop advancing the agenda of this illegal usurper of our Constitution. And that includes you, Dan Goldman, very fond of voting for Donald Trump's bullshit. We need Democrats to stand up, to be an opposition party. Quit considering yourself the fucking minority. It's hot in here. Maybe it's just me. Anyway, what do you think? I do. I want your opinion here. Let's talk about this story. We can do it in the comments. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. I love and appreciate you. Thank you for tolerating my bombacity, my bombasticness, whichever is the correct one. I do appreciate you. I know I'm a bit much sometimes. I know I can be a little bit too much, but thanks for sticking around. I appreciate it very much.
He promised he'd end all wars on day one. In 2 weeks, he's bombed Nigeria, Syria, and now Venezuela. He said he'd lower costs on day one, and then he put a tariff tax in place that has raised everyone's costs.
You know, one of the problems with corporate media is that they get to choose, I guess is kind of the problem with all of it. A lot of the corporate media out there right now are really leaning on going to Republicans for comment, and then Democrats get kind of boxed out because there's only finite time during these shows. And this is why we need leaders in the Democratic Party who communicate very well, who can be very destructive and disruptive to the narrative being spun by Republicans and Donald Trump and this administration and the cohort of fascists and fascist enablers in Washington, D.C., the town in which I live. And Eric Swalwell is one of these disruptors. He was on CNN. Not yesterday, I believe it was the day before. And he laid waste to Donald Trump and the narrative surrounding Venezuela, surrounding the fact that we're running the show now. Donald Trump can't even run this fucking country. How does he think he's going to run another country? A massive water. It's water, so much water. You've never seen so much water. That's how much water separates us and Venezuela. The same amount of water that prevented a proper response in Hurricane Maria to Puerto Rico. It's that much water and then some. And Donald Trump thinks he's going to run that country. Get out of here. So I got 3 clips here, and they are. One is better than the next, is better than the next. Let's start with this, which is whether or not this entire Venezuelan operation was in the DOJ's purview, which was in Donald Trump's legal area of authority, not like his area of concern, but his actual area of command authority to do what he did. And Eric Swalwell just gives the answer.
We're glad to have you here. It's good to see you. The president and his administration today going to great lengths to talk about how this is a Department of Justice operation, law enforcement that was supported by the Department of Defense, by the military. Legally speaking, do you believe this is within the DOJ's purview?
Absolutely not. Vladimir Putin has an arrest warrant, out for his conduct in Ukraine, and Donald Trump certainly is not going and arresting Vladimir Putin and invading that country and saying that we're going to run it without a plan.
Yeah, if this was about taking out a despot who had an arrest warrant and was indicted, the same could be said for Vladimir Putin. The same can be said for Bibi Netanyahu, who has an arrest warrant out for him for war crimes, for genocide, for crimes against humanity. But he is in Donald Trump's little friend group, just like Vladimir Putin is. So he's not going to go after him. He's going to go after somebody else. Eric Swalwell also highlighting the lies and betrayals of Donald Trump, not just to the American people, but also people involved in all of this. This is why we need to put pressure on outfits like CNN, outfits like MS Now, even. CBS, even though that's fully in the tank now. That's like asking Fox News for something different than they give us. We need to put pressure on corporate media, legacy media, mainstream media to do the right thing, to have the right people on, to give alternate explanations than those provided by this administration.
Of course, Donald Trump was always going to violate the Constitution and invade Venezuela. He's done the exact opposite of what he's promised he'd do since he took office. And that is frankly the biggest betrayal he's made as president. He promised he'd end all wars on day one. In 2 weeks, he's bombed Nigeria, Syria, and now Venezuela. He said he'd lower costs on day one, and then he put a tariff tax in place that has raised everyone's costs. And he said he'd release the Epstein files, and of course, he has buried them. So politicians break promises all the time. That happens, but almost none of them do the exact opposite of what got them elected. And that's what Donald Trump just did with this action in Venezuela.
And speaking of betrayals, speaking of going back on promises, Donald Trump is now betraying the people that he swore he would protect, that he loves. I love the poorly educated, he croned after the Nevada primary in 2016. You'll remember that, right?
We won the evangelicals. We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
So it's those very poorly educated people that Donald Trump loves so much that he also betrayed. And Eric Swalwell doesn't let a good appearance on the media go without explaining it explicitly.
Agree with them?
Well, I do. And, I talk to Californians all over the state, and going into Venezuela and, quote, running that country ranks at about 200th on their priorities. They're not focused on Venezuela. They're focused on the cost in Ventura and Vallejo, the rent in Los Angeles, and the grocery prices in Pasadena. And they have no faith that Donald Trump can run a country. He couldn't run a casino. And now he's going to run a country in South America while we watch as he fails to run a country in North America. That doesn't add up. And neither does this whole concept that we're going to get the oil from Venezuela and that it will pay for itself, essentially. We heard that over 20 years ago from George Bush, that we'd get the oil from Iraq, and that cost us $3 trillion.
They wanted this presidency to be different. They wanted this administration to be different. They wanted the policy of the United States of America to be focused on something other than endless wars, regime change, invading other countries. They wanted him to focus on something other than this. And here we are. He promised them he would. And here we are. And again, how does he intend to run a country when he lost money running a casino? Guaranteed money. He had a printer that printed $100 bills in owning a casino, and he went fucking bankrupt. How does he intend to run a country an ocean away? Is Marco Rubio going to do it? Is Pete fucking Hegseth going to do it? Come on. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. It was a brave decision by Donald Trump, and then no follow-up. He didn't answer the question. You're not doing the job you should be doing, Tony DeCoppel. Look, I know that I, and also people in my particular cohort here on YouTube and in independent media that talk a lot about independent media and the importance of independent media. And we take a big runny dump on legacy media to get crass about it. We shit on mainstream media a lot. But we have a new situation on our hands with Donald Trump pressuring these cowards who own these giant media companies, who then bend the knee to him, to give him everything he wants. He allows them to merge and make purchases, to get themselves even larger, to take choice out of the equation. And CBS is the next in line. I know I talked about Tony DeCoppel the other day. I've talked about Barry Weiss and CBS and how they have just fully become state media. They are now even making like maybe Fox News blush. It's getting so gross. And it took no time at all after they named Tony DeCoppel as the new anchor of CBS News. Tony DeCoppel, a guy who's never seen a genocide conducted by Israel that he didn't want to get behind. No solutions to homelessness or drug addiction or government funding to make people's lives better. Nah, none of that. Let's punish them all. That's who he is. He's a real piece of work. He's now the new CBS anchor. Bizarre the situation we find ourselves in now. And I have three clips here. One is Margaret Brennan, who also works for CBS, just to illustrate to you that this isn't just a Tony DeCoppel issue. This is absolutely a CBS, a larger universal issue with CBS, an umbrella problem for this network now that Barry Weiss runs the show. Margaret Brennan hosts Face the Nation, and she did a little stinger, a little commercial to promote an interview that Tony DeCoppel did with Pete Hegseth, and then immediately cuts to commercial, giving no context. And the reason I'm going to play this isn't for the fact that she did it. It's the fact that when they go out of it and they fade to black at the end of the clip, you might need to rewind it and watch it to really get it. She looks demoralized at what she had just done. She looks bummed the out of what she has just reduced herself to, working as a propagandist for a fascist, for America's Hitler, working in service to him. Watch this.
Late yesterday, CBS Evening News anchor Tony DeCoppel talked exclusively with Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and asked what the president's comments about the U.S. running Venezuela meant, and asked if the secretary was prepared to have troops on the ground there.
Well, it means we set the terms. President Trump sets the terms, and ultimately he'll decide what the iterations are of that. But it means the drugs stop flowing. It means the oil that was taken from us is returned ultimately, and that criminals are not sent to the United States. It means that foreign countries don't have a lodgment inside our hemisphere. So ultimately, we're going to control what happens next because of this brave decision. President Trump has shown American leadership. And he'll be able to dictate where we go next.
Face the Nation will be back in 1 minute. Stay with us.
Now, this that I'm getting ready to show you was what she was promoting, what she was getting you all amped up and interested to watch, was Tony DeCoppel talking to Pete Hegseth, asking no follow-ups, which we will demonstrate. This is the man who Donald Trump says might be running Venezuela. What did you see in Venezuela during that attack? And then gives him the opportunity to just, the troops, the flag, the freedom, the patriotism, the lethality, given all of his buzzwords with no critical questions whatsoever. Not a critical eye on any of this as far as the global impact, on the legality of it, on the constitutionality of it, of Donald Trump trying to claw powers for himself that are not authorized him by the Constitution of the United States. He gives him the commercial space to say all the nonsense about the troops and patriotism and rock flag eagle and all the bullshit. And then when it comes time to ask a question, he asks an actual question and then flubs, does not ask a follow-up after his question was not answered. And his question was a good one. First, though, here's the jingoistic patriotism nonsense provided by the new state media, CBS News.
Appreciate it. Taking a turn here now. When President Trump was asked exactly who would be running the country of Venezuela temporarily, he referred to the officials standing there behind him at the podium. And one of those officials joins us now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us. I want to begin tonight with the soldiers and sailors involved in this. We're very happy. Thank you again. We are very happy to hear that there was no loss of American life in this mission. And I understand you're just back from Joint Base Andrews, where you met with some of the team members involved in all of this. How are they doing? And you were watching this unfold. What did you see?
I saw the best of America. I saw men and women dedicating their lives to defending our country and to accomplishing that mission. And I just landed here at Joint Base Andrews, had a chance to meet a lot of them firsthand who were involved, walked through the TikTok of what can only be described as the most sophisticated, most complicated, and most successful joint special operations raid of all time. I mean, nothing of this size scope when you actually unpack what was done kinetically and non-kinetically, that many people, that many moving parts, that consequential, and they got the job done. And despite any obstacles in front of them, it is incredible to be able to serve such courageous, brave, and skilled Americans. We do right by them, and President Trump did. He gave them a clear mission, and they finished it.
He teases the piece by saying when Donald Trump was asked who would be running Venezuela, he referred to those people standing behind him. And right now we have one of those people. You're going to get answers about what they're going to do to run the country. What'd you see during the invasion? Oh, troops, patriotism, blah, 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 blah. I saw the best of America, bravery. Donald Trump's brave for, that's not journalism. If we wanted that, we would just go to Pete Hegseth's Twitter account, Tony DeCoppel. If we wanted that, we would just go to the White House YouTube page to receive the propaganda from the administration. We don't need you for that, Tony DeCoppel. We don't need you. Now, the next clip starts where that one ended. And you'll see, because I'm giving you the full context here. He then asks the question about what does running Venezuela look like? How does that appear to the administration? What do you intend to do? Pete Hegseth, no surprise you will feel, did not answer the question. And the follow-up didn't involve trying to get an actual answer to the question, because Tony DeCoppel isn't there to get answers. He's there to provide the administration an opportunity to propagandize his audience.
President Trump did. He gave them a clear mission, and they finished it.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I'd love to talk about the mission now because there are questions about what happens next in Venezuela. The president said today that the U.S. is going to be running the country. What does that look like? Does that mean we're going to see Americans on the corners of Venezuela, in the government of Venezuela? Are you prepared to have troops on the ground in Venezuela?
Well, it means we set the terms. President Trump sets the terms, and ultimately he'll decide what the iterations are of that. But it means the drugs stop flowing. It means the oil that was taken from us is returned ultimately, and that criminals are not sent to the United States. It means that foreign countries don't have a lodgment inside our hemisphere. So ultimately, we're going to control what happens next because of this brave decision. President Trump has shown American leadership, and he'll be able to dictate where we go next.
So, Mr. Secretary, then, by your words there, I imagine you are prepared for a full-scale U.S. intervention to stabilize the country of Venezuela if asked for by the president. If that comes to pass, will you ask Congress for approval? Do you believe legally you need to ask Congress for approval?
Well, we're postured, and the president said the blockade continues, no oil going in and out, no drug boats allowed to traffic in the Caribbean or the East Pac, so we're still poised there. This was a law enforcement exercise.
It was a brave decision by Donald Trump, and then no follow-up. He didn't answer the question. You're not doing the job you should be doing, Tony DeCoppel. I mean, maybe if this was an interview with a Palestinian, you'd have some fire to ask some actual questions. You'd want to really hammer him down. But because it's Donald Trump, oh, we can't do that. We must paint America in the best light, even though we are acting illegally. CBS News cannot be relied upon for accurate information anymore. They are worse than Fox News. The reason they're worse than Fox News is because they still maintain the patina of respectability. There's an age long gone where Walter Cronkite was a storied newsman behind a desk as the anchor of the CBS Evening News. And they still maintain some of that reputation. There are people in my life who still think CBS is what it once was. It is no longer. And that's why they're more dangerous than Fox News, because people will see, oh, CBS, that's not Fox News. That's not Newsmax. That's not One America News. No. That's not Daily Caller. That's not Daily Wire. No. That's not Epoch Times. No, that's CBS News. They're legitimate. They're respectable. They're believable. We can trust them. And no, you can't. No longer. Or am I wrong? Let me know in the comments below. You can also call the voicemail line 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. If you appreciate what I do or the way I do it, the way that I handle things, if you appreciate my integrity, whatever, please consider supporting this work in independent media where I'm going to ask tough questions. I'm going to analyze the news with an eye on reality, not providing propaganda for either party, but especially not the Republican Party, this fascist outfit. You can become a channel member on YouTube. Click the join button below the video, or you can just click the join button on my channel generally. You can also, even better, the better option would be go to patreon.com/IDoubtItPodcast. I wouldn't even complain if you canceled your YouTube membership and migrated over to Patreon. That would be great because they take way less. We're grandfathered in. We've been on Patreon since 2014. So we're in like the legacy. They only take 5%, where YouTube takes 30 or 35%. It's a nightmare. Anyway, all the little weird numbers. If you want to support, I would appreciate it very much. It does help go a long way to helping us do the work we do. I love and appreciate you very much. Thank you for your engagement, for your passion, for making the country and by extension, the world a better place. We're going to get through this. It's not going to be easy, but I believe we will. But it will take all of us. Anyway, I will see you next time. Be genuine and take care of one another.
On too many stories, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American.
for quite a while, certainly since Donald Trump came around, the Republican Party has set its attention to disrespect of academia, disrespect of intellectuals, disrespect of expertise. There's this refrain from elites, mind you, like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and people who went to Ivy League schools to say, your kids don't need to go to college. That's overrated. These people who sent their kids to elite private institutions now act like that's elite. We need to rely on our common sense, they say. And this all-out assault on expertise is now infiltrating our media. When the billionaire, the elite Nepo baby billionaire, Larry Ellison, David Ellison is the Nepo baby. Larry Ellison is his dad. When David Ellison bought CBS and put Barry Weiss, someone who went to Columbia University, put Barry Weiss in charge, who then hired Tony DeCopel, who also went to Columbia University. This is the new Fox News, CBS News, no longer reliable. And Tony DeCopel yesterday came out with this 2-minute intro, 2 minutes or so intro. He kind of introduced himself as the new lead anchor for CBS Evening News. And he explains in very, very nebulous detail an explanation for what he's going to do and how he's going to do his job. We're not going to rely on experts. We're not going to rely on the eggheads in academia who spend their entire lives becoming experts on 1 or 2 or 3 topics. We're not going to rely on them. We're going to go to you. What do you feel about how everything's going on? And all of this is in an effort to dumb down the American people, to tell them whatever you're feeling on any given day is valid, absolutely valid, even if it does not line up with our reality, even if it doesn't line up with the facts on the ground. And all of this absolutely is a larger umbrella problem in the United States because of so many people who disregard experts. While there's a measles outbreak in several states across the country, where in my home state of Idaho, they've made it illegal to have vaccine requirements in public or private institutions. And now the vaccine rates are falling below the necessary 95 or 97% to create herd immunity relative to the measles especially. This is a problem. And when you have outlets like CBS News, which I'm going to get to this clip, it makes all of us more unsafe than we were before Tony DeCopel, the guy who's never seen a genocide administered by Israel that he wasn't fully in support of. He's now the guy to give you the information that you should take into your day, into your life, and act accordingly. Watch Tony DeCopel really let you know what CBS News is now all about.
A lot has changed since the first person sat in this chair, but for me, the biggest difference is people do not trust us like they used to. And it's not just us, it's all of legacy media. And I get it. I get it because I've been hearing about it from just about everybody for more than 20 years as I've traveled America on this assignment or that. My mom's neighbors in West Virginia, my own neighbors in New York City, thousands and thousands of conversations in between. Sometimes people want to talk to me about our coverage of NAFTA or the Iraq War. Other times it's all about Hillary Clinton's emails or Russiagate. Or more recently, COVID lockdowns, Hunter Biden's laptop, or the president's fitness for office. The point is, on too many stories, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American. Or we put too much weight in the analysis of academics or elites and not enough on you. And I know this because at certain points, I have been you. I have felt this way too. I felt like what I was seeing and hearing on the news didn't reflect what I was seeing and hearing in my own life, and that the most urgent questions simply weren't being asked. So here's my promise to you, today and every time you see me in this chair. You come first, not advertisers, not politicians, not corporate interests. And yes, that does include the corporate owners of CBS. I report for you, which means I tell you what I know, when I know it, and how I know it. And when I get it wrong, I'll tell you that too. It also means I'm going to talk to everybody and hold everyone in public life to the very same standard. After all, I became a journalist to talk to people. I love talking to people about what works in this country, what doesn't, and not only what should change, but the good ideas that should never change. I think telling the truth is one of them. I'm Tony DeCopel, the anchor of the CBS Evening News. Hold me to it.
That should be alarming to everybody. On too many stories, says Tony DeCopel, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American. So let's put this in perspective, Tony. In the 1960s, when the March on Washington happened in August, and Dr. King gave his famous "I Have a Dream" speech, what has become known as that. The American public's opinion about the March on Washington was negative. Their opinion about Martin Luther King Jr. was negative. They thought, oh, in due time you'll get your rights, but not yet. Should CBS News have taken into account what the most important aspect, which was how people felt about that moment in history at the time? Or should they have reported on the facts about discrimination, about the oppression and suppression of the vote of Black Americans? Or should they have just, let's go poll the people in Mississippi and see how they feel about this matter? When he says, and I know that, or we put too much weight in the analysis of academics or elites and not enough on you. So we're going to be taking into account the analysis of average everyday bigots in the American populace over that of experts, people who spend decades of their lives studying particular issues. Let me tell you, listen, Monday I have a colonoscopy again. I have about 2 a year now after having cancer. And I don't want somebody who has their analysis rooted in their common sense when I go to the doctor. I want my doctor. I want my expert. When I board a plane, I don't want Gary from the back row. Well, how do you feel? What's your analysis about flying this plane? What altitude? What path should we follow? I want an expert, someone who is trained for years and years to become an airline pilot. Wouldn't you want that? When you go to get your taxes done, do you go to Gary at the back of the plane, or do you seek out a tax expert, someone who has done the requisite study and education and certifications to become a tax expert? This is the dumbing down of America. This is the same reason why we are not combating climate change right now, is because people are like, well, that doesn't make sense to me. Those egghead scientists, what do they know? What does the scientific consensus know more than me? A guy who works at Walmart or is a plumber or is a stock trader. You can even have a white-collar job. Doesn't mean you're an expert in the thing that you need to be an expert about to make decisions that require expertise. Tony DeCopel. I felt this way too. I feel like what I was seeing and hearing on the news didn't reflect what I was seeing and hearing in my own life. Does that also equate to when you hear that there's a genocide being administered by the state of Israel against the Palestinian people? That's not what I believe. I'm a dyed-to-the-wool Zionist. So here's my promise to you today, says Tony DeCopel. Every time you see me in this chair, you come first. Not advertisers, not politicians, not corporate interests. The only reason he's there in that chair is because of corporate interest. That of his Nepo baby billionaire boss, who's an elite, who put into place in the job to run CBS News, an elite who went to an elite academic institution, Columbia University, who then hired he himself, Tony DeCopel, who went to Columbia University again. These people, we see you. We know who you are. You can't decry elitism from your perch of elitism. Things are getting worse before they'll get better, but it's going to take all of us to get involved and to sound off and to shut off your TV when CBS News comes on, first of all, to make them get better. What do you think? I invite you to this very important conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video, wherever you're watching it. What they're saying is that Donald Trump has to be babysat. There has to be a high-level White House staffer at his side at all times. He's 80 years old. Is it to make sure he's still breathing? So over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal published this piece about Donald Trump's health, primarily, but it was meant, I believe it was meant to be a puff piece. It was meant to quell the concerns about Donald Trump's health and to put into the minds of America that, well, you know, Donald Trump, he's not really sleeping. He just has a hard time keeping his eyes open, I think is how they phrased it. We'll get to it. There was also a moment where they're blaming all of the, he hasn't been in Washington, D.C. for like 2 weeks now. And they're blaming that on staff who he works really way too hard. We've convinced him to take all of this time off. They're really going through it, trying to convince America that he's okay, that we're not going to wake up one morning and the old man died in his sleep. Hurrah! Hurrah! And here's the headline. We'll get into this. As signs of aging emerge, Trump responds with defiance. In an interview, the president says he has eschewed some advice from his doctors and regrets getting advanced imaging, which is another thing they say. I'm not going to read from that part, but talking about how Donald Trump's MRI, well, it wasn't actually an MRI, but I'm really bummed that I did it because it gave people ammunition to question whether or not I'm healthy. Oh, that's bullshit. I'm totally healthy. Mm-hmm. He also denies that he can't hear very well. He denies that he falls asleep in meetings. They're just catching me in between blinks, is what he says. He's saying that when you see him pass the fuck out for many, many seconds at a time, sometimes minutes at a time during meetings, whether they're cabinet meetings or meetings in the Oval Office, that when he's sleeping, no, they're just catching him in between blinks. Here's where the puff piece started. Trump, 79, the oldest man to assume the presidency, is showing signs of aging in public and private, according to people close to him. Yet, he has at times eschewed the advice of his doctors and scoffed at the medical community's widely accepted health recommendations, relying instead on what he calls his good genetics. Trump and his doctors say he is in excellent health, and aides say he maintains a vigorous schedule. And again, you know, going back to what I talked about to start this today about the denigration of expertise and science, academia, and dedicating your life, decades of your life to education about one or two or three specific issues. This goes part and parcel with that. This is just standard operating procedure of the Republican Party, and especially Donald Trump, related to expertise, because he's ignoring his doctor's advice on what milligram dosage to take of aspirin because he wants his blood as thin as possible. I don't want that old thick blood running through my heart, he says. Get a load of this. The large dose of aspirin he chooses to take daily has caused him to bruise easily, he said. And he has been encouraged by his doctors to take a lower dose. But Trump has declined to switch because he's been taking it for 25 years. Quote, "I'm a little superstitious," he said in the interview. "They say aspirin is good for thinning out the blood. I don't want thick blood pouring through my heart," Trump said. "I want nice, thin blood pouring through my heart. Does that make sense?" No, dipshit, that does not make sense. But you do you. Look, who am I to convince you to do something that would be healthy for you, prolonging your life? No. You keep on this track. You keep pounding the Big Macs and the quarter pounders and the fillet of fishes and the fries in one sitting. Over 2,000 calories of grub in one meal. You keep at it, Donald Trump. Who are we to tell you you're wrong? Trump denied that he struggles to hear. He also denied falling asleep at recent White House events and said he has always gotten by on little sleep. The president has sometimes described his medical care inaccurately. He has for weeks said that he underwent an MRI at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in October. When asked about the procedure in the Journal, Trump said his doctor said he got a different form of imaging, a CT scan. A CT scan is a faster and more common way to capture detailed images of the body. The MRI is a slower test that is superior for soft tissues. Quote, "It wasn't an MRI," Trump told the Journal. "It was less than that. It was a scan." Why are we going to Donald Trump for explanations about his medical care? Someone who has no fucking idea about anything that he talks about ever. Why would we go to him when you're even acknowledging that he doesn't communicate properly, effectively, accurately about his health? Why would we do that, Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch, the sister company of Fox News? Here's the other part where they kind of put this on the staff. Actually, do I want to read that? Yeah, let me do that. And then I want to get to the thing that he's not sleeping. It's fine. It's just blinks. And also, he hears good too. Trump says he often begins his day early at an office in the White House residence before coming downstairs around 10 a.m. and working in the Oval Office until 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Please. The White House provided a private calendar for the first 19 days in December, which included hundreds of meetings and phone calls with staff, CEOs, lawmakers, and cabinet secretaries. You see what they're doing here, painting this guy as someone who works diligently and hard, long into the night. Oh, he does work in the morning in a private office that no one can see him or talk to him in. And then he comes down, makeup affixed to his hands, ready to go, hair finely coiffed like the dog piss cotton candy mop on the top of his head. Don't worry, he's fine, everybody, says the Wall Street Journal. He said he has asked his staff to modify his schedule so that he can have fewer, more important meetings that he can devote more attention to. A change he doesn't attribute to age, but to using his time more efficiently. Administration officials said they haven't yet pared down his meeting schedule. Trump's staff, says the Wall Street Journal, have encouraged him to slow his pace. They urged him to spend roughly 2 weeks in South Florida around Christmas and New Year's Eve, according to aides. A recommendation he acted on, they say. Oh, did he? When he was asked to take lots of vacation time, he took them up on that? Fantastic. Now, we got two more things I want to talk about. Well, three. Two of them come together, though. One is the sleep issue, and that his hearing is fine. And the other is this ridiculous thing about his diet. There's an anecdote in here shared by the chairman of the National Republican, the committee chairman of the National Republican Committee, that says he watched Donald Trump house a massive amount of food in one outing. But here's on the sleep. The president has difficulty sleeping well at night, and by his own account is often texting and calling aides at 2 a.m. or later. Several aides described getting text messages from him after he catches up on their Fox News appearances in the wee hours of the morning. "I've never been a big sleeper," Trump said. Sleeping is a particular issue aboard Air Force One, where Trump keeps his advisors awake, according to his aides. Top staff takes turns sitting with him on long trips, rotating so that others can sleep while one person remains at his side, according to White House officials. What they're saying is that Donald Trump has to be babysat. There has to be a high-level White House staffer at his side at all times, one, to allow other people to sleep because our addled, demented old man of a president cannot. And so they have to babysit him. Why would they need to be there with him the whole time? He's 80 years old. Is it to make sure he's still breathing? To make sure he's not sleeping, which he's fond of doing, although he denies? Here's this. Trump said he didn't fall asleep during recent events at the White House. Quote, "I'll just close. It's very relaxing to me," he said in describing shutting his eyes. "Sometimes they'll take a picture of me blinking, and they'll catch me with the blink." I mean, it's hilarious because we exist in reality, but MAGA world's going to buy, well, of course, it's just in between blinks. Those dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of photos that you've seen of Donald Trump, the minutes and minutes and minutes of compilations of videos of him sleeping, and that's not him sleeping. Those are just in between blinks. They're catching him with the blinks, he says. And then catch this, and we'll end here. Catch this. Listen to this, and then we'll end here about Donald Trump's diet, which gives me great hope for good things in 2026. For months and months, I've said Donald Trump is on his way out. I don't foresee him. My prediction is he's going to die this year. And, you can make of that what you will, but this is from someone who of great credibility relative to Donald Trump, who's not going to speak ill of Donald Trump. I think that the Republican National Committee chairman who said this thinks this is a good thing about Donald Trump, which in and of itself is a problem. Trump said he hasn't made changes to his diet. In a podcast interview in October, Republican National Committee Chairman Joe Gruters described being shocked by Trump's eating habits when they traveled together during the campaign. While flying to a campaign event, according to Gruters, Trump consumed French fries, a McDonald's quarter-pounder hamburger, a Big Mac, and a Filet-O-Fish. That's a meal for Donald Trump. Trump said he has plenty of energy, which he credited to his parents, who he said were energetic until their old age. "Genetics are very important," he said, "and I have very good genetics." So this was absolutely an effort to extricate Donald Trump from any questions about his health, and all it did is raise more questions. Because when you live in reality, when you deal with reality on reality's terms, when you are not in fantasy land, questions arise about the health of our 80-year-old president, our obese 80-year-old president with a litany of health problems, both physical and cognitive. But the Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch's Fox News, News Corp, they don't want you to worry about that. And in their effort to have you not worry about it, they made you worry about it. Absolute. I mean, it's a nightmare, except for the fact that we have something good to look forward to. So we'll see. What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. We can have it in the comments below the video. I would love to hear from you. Look, Happy New Year and all that. And seriously, keep your head on a swivel. We've got to let, this year is probably going to get worse before it gets better. For the rest of the administration, I think we can safely assume that is going to be the case. But I would brace yourself for, one, I would prepare yourself for the inevitability that good things will happen in the midterms, but it's going to take all of our work, not just on our elected officials, but on us as citizens as well, to make sure that good things do happen for our neighbors and our community members when we can.
1 million. Whoa. I'll sign it if you'll give more.
To say that Donald Trump and the Republican Party is tone deaf doesn't really get it done. Yesterday was a testament to this fact. Yesterday on a stage, maybe it was the night before on a stage, New Year's Eve party, on a stage at Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump auctioned off a painting that was painted like in 5 or 10 minutes on the stage before the audience, and they auctioned it off. But it was a painting of Jesus, for one. Donald Trump offered to sign the painting of Jesus, but it was done by this woman who puts herself out there, and she is a self-titled worship artist, I think is how a Christian worship artist who goes to churches, and while worship music plays and they're like, amen and praise Jesus, she's painting paintings of Donald Trump on stage during a worship service dedicated to worshiping what they believe to be the Son of God, Jesus the Christ. While income inequality soars in America, while billionaires are looting the federal government, while healthcare is being stripped away from millions of Americans just this year alone, while student loan recipients are being denied income-based solutions to extricate themselves from the morass of debt, something that is talked about ad nauseum in the Bible, in the New Testament. While all of this is happening, this woman, this Christian worship artist, sits next to Donald Trump on stage while he's in his tuxedo auctioning off with billionaires and multimillionaires in the audience this painting that she just painted. You know, just like Jesus would do, hanging out with the rich and the powerful and the elite, just like Jesus. Let me start with who she is. You may have seen some of this blasphemous idolatry on display in sanctuaries of evangelical churches all across the country. Here she is, the aforementioned video that I was talking about, where worship music blares, and she's painting Donald Trump, not God, not her deity. Well, maybe it is. Painting Donald Trump in a church on a stage while worship music. They are not beating the allegations that they are in a cult. On her own YouTube channel, she shared this one. The title of this little ditty is, "This is one of my favorite speeches done by President Trump. What an amazing leader. Hashtag Christian art." Watch this.
You do what God called you to do. You show up. You put one foot in front of the other. You have no idea what God has calling for you. You have no idea where you're going, and in some cases you don't know why. But He needs you. He needs me. He needs all of us. It is God that is the answer, and it is this same turning to God, the ultimate answer to evil. America is a nation strengthened and sustained by God and the prayers of all His children.
Well, he said all that stuff. He must believe it. He said it. Unfortunately, this woman who self-describes as a Christian worship artist, whatever that is, she doesn't apparently read her Bible or understand the Bible when she reads it. Because in Matthew 7:15 through 20, it says, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. You shall know them by their fruits. You don't listen to what they say because they could be of ravenous wolves. You know them by what they bring to the world, what their values are, what they promote. And Donald Trump promotes being wealthy. Donald Trump promotes letting the wealthy off from paying their fair share, a reasonable level of tax. They pay less tax as an effective tax rate than their employees do. And Donald Trump, he's for this. And Christians, they're here for it too. Evangelicals, the people who grew up or are in the faith that I grew up in, they're here for it. It flies in the face of the philosophies of the man they claim is the Son of God. So here's just a brief moment of her unveiling her painting on stage with Donald Trump. And then we're going to get to him offering to sign the painting of Jesus while talking about the billionaires in the audience who will pump money or pluck money out of people's wallets while she looks on with adoration and worship in her eyes for Donald Trump.
Is that amazing? Is that amazing? Great job. I don't know how you do that. It's this. She's done portraits of me in the White House, and they're the best. I've replaced a lot of people with those portraits. I've had the greatest painters. You know, the White House recommends a list of 10 painters, and honestly, we use them. But this is the one that did the best painting, so I tell you that because these people are loaded with cash, just so you know. If you want to get a portrait, I would call Vanessa. So I'm going to start off. You know what we'll do?
So that's the painting. She's talented, of course. Yeah, she's a painter. Yeah, right on. Talented. And they auctioned this off, and it was for charity. That's going to be the thing everybody talks about. Well, it was for charity. Well, it was for charity. Well, it was for charity. Do you not see the larger picture here? You're missing the forest for the trees, or whatever the saying is. This is auctioning off a painting of Jesus at a lavish event attended by people he would despise. And yet they're, the worship and the only thing that we can take any solace in that this wasn't just a painting of Trump being auctioned, that at least they're giving some tip of the hat to Jesus himself. They just don't want to actually talk about his philosophies or his teachings, his preachings, his commandments, not suggestions. So here is that moment where he's talking about this billionaire Wall Street, the number one guy. He's the biggest guy on Wall Street. He'll pluck money from your wallet as though that's a good thing.
Mr. Word on. What? 1 million. Whoa. He's the biggest guy on Wall Street, so it's peanuts. He's the biggest guy on Wall Street. Don't let that red hat fool you. He wears that so that he sort of takes people by surprise before he plucks the money out of their wallets, right? So anyway, thank you very much. 1 million. 2 million? 2 million. Whoa. 2 million. 2 million. Wow. You see what I mean? Did I tell you these people? And yet that's peanuts. Anybody, huh? I'll sign it if you'll give more. Okay. Are there any other bids? Any other bids?
Don't let the red hat fool you. He wears that so he sort of takes people by surprise before he plucks money out of their wallet. Just like Jesus would, right? Just like Jesus would. You see, Donald Trump and this entire Republican Party, this new version, I mean, it's always been Christian right adjacent, but this new white Christian nationalist party is just a cult of Donald Trump. And to deny it is just to deny reality itself. These people do practice idolatry of Donald Trump. They see him as some kind of a divine Christ-like figure that will bring them redemption. I guess maybe through pardons for their criminality. That's the redemption they're seeking. And Vanessa Hortman is no different. Just another grifter on a stage filled with grifters seeking to gain the acknowledgement of Donald Trump, the cult leader, the dear leader, their demigod. Anyway, what do you think? Gross shit going on at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, look, at the very least, I think we can take solace in the fact that it wasn't a night of child rape, which seems to be the Mar-a-Lago standard operating procedure with Donald Trump. So at least it was just this. Anyway, what do you think?
I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. As the great senator from Vermont once said, what's radical is a system which gives so much to so few and denies so many people the basic necessities of life.
So yesterday, Zohran Mamdani was sworn in as the mayor of New York City. The Democratic Socialist candidate, a Democrat candidate who is going to govern as a Democratic Socialist. And people are upset. Not people who matter, people like Tommy Tuberville. You know, Tommy Tuberville, the most military man the world has ever known, even though he's never served a day in uniform. He's a coat tailor. His dad served, so apparently that makes him a brave, steely-eyed warrior. And he tweeted, Tommy Tuberville, a racist, an Islamophobe, just a bigot, a fake Christian. He tweeted this about Zohran Mamdani swearing in with his hand on the Quran. Not the Bible, because after all, Zohran Mamdani is not a Christian, but on the Quran. And this sent Tommy Tuberville into an existential crisis. He tweeted, "The enemy is inside the gates," along with this New York Times headline. Mamdani will be first New York City mayor to use the Quran at his swearing in. Zohran Mamdani, New York City's first Muslim mayor, will use 2 family Qurans and one that belonged to writer Arturo Schomburg at his 2 swearing in ceremonies. And this is what happened. This is what is so frightening. What I'm getting ready to show you, 3 short clips from Zohran Mamdani's acceptance speech, his swearing in speech, his inaugural address. This is what is having them in fits. People who are do-nothing, morons, traitors to the republic, like Tommy Tuberville, are beside themselves that a politician on a national stage is actually dedicating themselves to getting things done. And getting things done for everyone. In this first clip, brief clip, this is Zohran Mamdani saying that I am your mayor. I am the mayor of everyone in the city. I'm not here. I'm not going to paraphrase it before you watch it. Watch Zohran Mamdani and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
I stand alongside over 1 million New Yorkers who voted for this day nearly 2 months ago. And I stand just as resolutely alongside those who did not. I know there are some who view this administration with distrust or disdain, or who see politics as permanently broken. And while only action can change minds, I promise you this: if you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor. Regardless of whether we agree, I will protect you, celebrate with you, mourn alongside you, and never, not for a second, hide from you.
That has them apoplectic. This has Republicans seeing red. They cannot conceive of someone who is a selfless leader. And that's exactly, up to this point, this is everything we have to go on, is that is what he is. Now, look, I always say politicians are going to disappoint us. We need to prepare ourselves for that. He's not going to do everything I would like him to do. He's not going to do everything in the way that I would like him to do. But we have to judge him based on his heart, based on his intent, based on what he is truly about. And that is governing for the people, not for the wildly wealthy who want to put their thumb on the scale so that they don't have to pay as much tax when they have more than they could ever need in 1,000 lifetimes. That taking from a billionaire an extra % or two does not materially change in any way how they live their life, what comforts they have. And he's here to govern for everyone, whether you're a conservative or a liberal or a leftist. He's here for everyone. And that has Tommy Tuberville thinking he is the enemy inside the gates. The other thing that Republicans are not going to be happy about is that Zohran Mamdani intends to get shit done, to govern as he campaigned, but to actually accomplish things, as he says in this clip.
In writing this address, I have been told that this is the occasion to reset expectations, that I should use this opportunity to encourage the people of New York to ask for little and expect even less. I will do no such thing. The only expectation I seek to reset is that of small expectations. Beginning today, we will govern expansively and audaciously. We may not always succeed, but never will we be accused of lacking the courage to try. To those who insist that the era of big government is over, hear me when I say this. No longer will City Hall hesitate to use its power to improve New Yorkers' lives. For too long, we have turned to the private sector for greatness while accepting mediocrity from those who serve the public. I cannot blame anyone who has come to question the role of government, whose faith in democracy has been eroded by decades of apathy. We will restore that trust by walking a different path, one where government is no longer solely the final recourse for those struggling, one where excellence is no longer the exception. We expect greatness from the cooks wielding 1,000 spices, from those who stride out onto our Broadway stages, and from our starting point guard at Madison Square Garden. Let us demand the same from those who work in government. In a city where the mere names of our streets are associated with the innovation of the industries that call them home, we will make the word City Hall synonymous with both resolve and results.
Look, you should go watch this entire speech. I'll link to it below from the New York City Mayor's Office YouTube channel. But I would say this to you. If this kind of a speech doesn't make you emotional, maybe it's because you're not an emotional person. I am. I cry all the time. I cry watching West Wing. And this gives me strong patriotism vibes. This makes me feel emotional looking forward to what will be accomplished by this person and those around him, including the citizens of New York, in the coming weeks, in the coming months, in the coming years. And this has Republicans beside themselves because it will out them as the do-nothing obstructionists that they are, while this young man endeavors to change the system. And not change the system for the sake of changing the system, to change the system for the sake of the citizens of the country, of the residents of the city of New York. What's to hate? What's to label that the enemy inside the gates? Tommy Tuberville. And then we'll end with this. This is a clip where he is really drilling down and doubling down and highlighting the fact that he will answer to everyone. He's not going to do the Donald Trump thing that if a state didn't vote for him, he'll punish the Republicans in the state like he just did by vetoing the water bill, the clean water bill that was going to bring clean water to the rural residents of southeastern Colorado. But he did it because the governor is a Democrat, the Secretary of State is a Democrat, but he's going to punish MAGA because of it. That's not how Zohran Mamdani is going to operate, because he is a good and decent person with an eye on actual leadership. Tell me what you think.
We will deliver nothing less as we work each day to make this city belong to more of its people than it did the day before. Here is what I want you to expect from the administration that this morning moved into the building behind me. We will transform the culture of City Hall from one of no to one of how. We will answer to all New Yorkers, not to any billionaire or oligarch who thinks they can buy our democracy. We will govern without shame and insecurity, making no apology for what we believe. I was elected as a democratic socialist, and I will govern as a democratic socialist. I will not abandon my principles for fear of being deemed radical. As the great senator from Vermont once said, what's radical is a system which gives so much to so few and denies so many people the basic necessities of life. We will strive each day to ensure that no New Yorker is priced out of any one of those basic necessities. And throughout it all, we will, in the words of Jason Terrence Phillips, better known as Jadakiss or Jay to the moi, be outside. Because this is a government of New York, by New York, and for New York.
He's going to govern the same way that he campaigned. It's not going to be moving more conservative after the primary. He's not going to act like a normal politician. He's not going to tell you what you want to hear. He's going to govern like you need to hear. He's going to lower the prices so people can enjoy their lives, cannot languish in poverty and not be stressed about where the money for the rent or the food or the medicine is going to come. And Tommy Tuberville sees that as enemy behavior. So look, Alabama, you got a choice. Tommy Tuberville's running for governor. Do you want someone like a Zohran Mamdani? Maybe not living up to the expectations or the personality, the person we've become to know, but certainly there are choices that are better than Tommy Tuberville. Getting him out of the Senate would be great, but keeping him out of the governor's mansion in Alabama seems like a priority to me. Someone who is just a racist bigot, who is afraid of Zohran Mamdani because of what book he swore his oath on. Who cares? What do you think? I invite you to this conversation. Let's have it in the comments below the video. You can also call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. And of course, as always, you can email me, daily@dollemore.com.
Why is this the year of the lies?
Well, we've been doing this for a long time, and the volume and severity of the inaccurate claims was just overwhelming.
Moving into the new year, we're going to end here for the day. Moving into the new year, we need to be very vigilant about the lies from Donald Trump and this administration, the attacks on citizens of this country, on residents of this country who are migrants, who work hard every single day for toiling for hours and hours, many tens of hours throughout the week, to prop up and benefit the economy of the United States. All of us are benefited through immigrant labor. All of us benefit through undocumented immigrant labor because they pay taxes and then they get nothing for it. And lies are something that we need to keep our eyes on from this administration. Fact checkers do important work, and factcheck.org, they usually do like the lie of the year. And this year, they're dubbing the entire year the year of the lies rather than highlighting one particular lie. Get a load of this headline. I'm going to read 2 paragraphs from it, and then I'm going to play a clip from PBS NewsHour where the head of factcheck.org is interviewed by Lisa Desjardins over at PBS, and they talk about exactly what is at stake relative to fact-checking, relative to truth, relative to facts going into 2026. But first, here's the headline from The Independent. Top political fact-checking website explains why editors have dubbed 2025 the year of the lies. Since 2009, PolitiFact has published its annual Lie of the Year, taken from its own analysis, as well as submissions from the general public. We've been doing this for a long time, and the volume and severity of the inaccurate claims was just overwhelming. And we felt that it was insufficient to name just one our Lie of the Year, said Katie Sanders, editor-in-chief of PolitiFact. We wanted to catch people's attention and take stock of the times we're in, so we thought renaming it and giving it a different purpose might do that. Now, doing what I do, it is an impossible endeavor to try to cover Donald Trump, all of Donald Trump's lies, because people grow weary of it. They hear Donald Trump lying and talking and knowing that every time he opens up his slobbery suck underneath his nose, that there's going to be a lie that emanates from it. He has said as much, that what you're seeing with your eyes and what you're reading with your eyes is not true. What you're experiencing when you go to the grocery store and you don't have enough money to pay for the things you need because prices are high, that's not happening. He's just a liar. He fires people who bring statistics and facts to bear relative to the labor market. He fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I mean, it is a nightmare out there. So the Sanders lady, I'm trying to get her back to her name here. Katie Sanders was on with Lisa Desjardins, like I just said, at PBS. And this is like an 8-minute longer interview. I'm going to give you a little bit for the intro. You'll see where it transitions. And then at the end, they talk about the importance and why it matters so much, the work of fact checkers and how they go about doing the work. And I think it's important for all of us to have a better understanding of not only where we get our information, but how we get our information. What decision-making goes into the choices we make about the media we consume. It is vitally important always, but more important this year, going into the second year of the second year of the second Trump administration, than it ever was before. Watch this from PBS NewsHour.
Katie, let's start with that change. Why is this the year of the lies?
Well, we've been doing this for a long time, and the volume and severity of the inaccurate claims was just overwhelming. And we felt that it was insufficient to name just one our Lie of the Year. So we wanted to catch people's attention and take stock of the times we're in. And so we thought renaming it and giving it a different purpose might do that.
As you're implying, there were almost too many lies for you to talk about just one. Many of them revolved around President Trump and his administration, everything from words about tariffs to the Venezuelan boat strikes. But thinking about this idea of the year of the lie, what are the stakes about facts in this country right now?
The stakes are high for facts and the erosion of information integrity. And one of the points I made in my opening column was that, yes, we're spotlighting several statements from the Trump administration, but the lows of the year for political rhetoric and influential speech are not the White House's alone. We're contending with a really fraught online information environment where AI slop is abundant, misleading, out of context narratives abound, and you just can't believe what you see. And we worry that people are too numb to the drumbeat of misinformation. They've tuned it out. And that is very dangerous, frankly, for us to be in. And so I hope that our Year of the Lies catches people's attention and reminds them why it's important to improve media literacy and pause before taking everything at face value.
And this is why we're so happy that you're talking to us and why we will clearly pay attention to your work next year as well. Katie Sanders, PolitiFact, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So look, this does a number of things for me in the job that I do. That is a weird and goofy job. That when I'm at Christmas parties or on New Year's Eve talking to people I've never met before, and I'm like, oh yeah, what do you do? And I'm reticent to say because it's a weird job. I want you to know that I am dedicated to bringing you accuracy and facts. It's one of the reasons why my thumbnails and titles aren't like some others in this space. When you click on a title of one of my videos, you know what that's going to be about. It's not AI in the thumbnail, creating fake images of Donald Trump making out with staffers that didn't happen at all, trying to generate clicks, trying to get 1 million or 2 million views on a single video based on a lie. I'm not going to do that. You can rely on me to shoot you straight and give you an honest analysis and my honest commentary on what's taking place. I'm not influenced by what's going to get more clicks or less clicks. I'm not interested in only talking about things that are monetized on YouTube. That's not what I'm here for. People consider me a journalist. I don't necessarily consider myself that. I'm an activist. I'm not an influencer. The way that I'm an influencer is I want to influence members of Congress and elected officials to do their fucking jobs, to represent we the people, to not take up for big interest. I am interested in holding elected leaders to account for forwarding the agenda of Donald Trump, for voting for his judicial nominees, for his ambassador nominees, for his legislation, for funding ICE. That's what I want to influence. I don't want to influence you. If I'm going to influence you in any way, it's not what to think, but how to think, how to get the information, how to spot bad information. And that's why fact checkers are so important. I wanted to highlight this story before we end today and before we lead into the new year. Anyway, I love and appreciate you very much. I hope that you appreciate the work that I do. I'm not going to sit here and, I work so hard, blah, blah, blah. I do work hard, but that's not what this is about. I want us together to join one with another to make this country better. I truly, earnestly, legitimately want that. And I hope you do too. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you. You can sound off in the comments below this video on YouTube or Facebook. Make sure you're subscribed and you like and follow the Dollemore Daily page on Facebook, and you can subscribe here on YouTube for free. That is awesome. I would appreciate it very much. Support the work if you want to. There's all kinds of ways. If you're that interested, you can figure it out. And call the voicemail line, 714-576-4054. Of course, email daily@dollemore.com. Happy New Year, everybody. It's going to be a hell of a ride. Be genuine. Take care of one another.